In this video, we're going to look at how to set up the Focusrite RedNet R1 desktop monitor controller with the Focusrite Red interface, along with some of the additional features and controls that are available from the hardware. Before making any connections and powering on the devices, we will first want to download and install the RedNet Control 2 application obtained from the download section of the Focusrite website. Not only will it install the application needed for pairing the devices and making adjustments, but it will also install the necessary Thunderbolt driver for the Red interface. Although not entirely necessary for operation, it is worth separately installing Audinate's Dante Controller application, as this will access certain network settings and verify audio routings between the RedNet R1 and Red interface. It will also facilitate any additional routings with other Dante-enabled devices. Before connecting the RedNet R1, let's first check our Red interface's connection. Along with connecting the interface to the computer with a Thunderbolt cable, we will also want to connect its RJ45 network port to the computer. If the computer does not feature this port, a separate adapter or hub can be used. At this point, let's open up RedNet Control 2 and navigate to the preferences to select the primary network interface option used for connection. With the Red interface powered on, a window will pop up asking if we want to add the device to a tab, which I will skip for now, but we will now see the interface in the device view on the side here. We will also want to check this is selected in the Dante Controller application. This will make sure that the RedNet R1 is also visible once we connect it. There are a couple ways in which we can connect the RedNet R1 to the same network. First option is we can connect its RJ45 port to the second port on the Red interface. With the network configuration option in Dante Controller set to switched, this second port will allow daisy chaining of devices. The second option is connecting all devices, including the computer, to a network switch. This option will allow expansion with additional Dante-enabled devices and connection of other network devices such as the A-series monitors from Atom Audio. Next, we will connect the power supply and power on the hardware. Note the power supply will twist and lock into place. Once powered, we should see a notification on the device that it is not paired, but we should see it on the device list in RedNet Control 2 and in Dante Controller. If connecting the hardware to RedNet Control 2 for the first time, it is possible that you will be prompted with a firmware update notification. Please proceed with this before continuing further while making sure not to power off or disconnect the units from the network. Now let's pair the two devices together for use. In RedNet Control 2, I will create two new tabs with a 1x1 grid, then drag in the devices from the device list into their own tab. For the RedNet R1, you will be prompted to select a device to control from the drop-down. Upon selecting our Red interface, we'll be given the option to follow the interface sample rate and save any previous settings. We are now ready to make our routings and control our interface. Let's start by first getting the main stereo software output from the computer to our monitors, which are connected to monitor outputs 1 and 2 on the interface. From the Source Groups page, we can configure 8 different input groups, which contain assignments of hardware inputs and software playback channels. Since I'm running a stereo monitor configuration, I will choose the stereo preset and assign playback 1 and 2 to the appropriate channels. Next, we navigate to the Monitor Outputs page to configure our output group. For output 1, I will select stereo and assign the left and right channels to the desired outputs on the interface. With the selected channels, we can see that we're no longer able to make assignments to it under the Output Routing page for the Red interface. Before testing some audio, it's worth noting that the RedNet R1 and Red monitor dials both control the overall output level, which can result in insufficient levels or high sensitivity. The recommended setup procedure would be to set the Red output level lower, but not muted. Turn the RedNet R1 monitor encoder to maximum, run some test signal, set the Red monitor dial to the highest loudness level preferred, then use the RedNet R1 monitor encoder to reduce the level and control further as needed. With some signal playing from the computer, the left screen is showing metering for the input sources, while the right is showing the overall output level routed to the selected output. Under the monitor encoder, we'll have the ability to quickly mute and dim the output level. Pressing and holding dim will allow us to adjust the dim level. Although I'm only currently running a single stereo set of monitors, the RedNet R1 makes it easy to switch between multiple monitors or additional monitor configurations. For this example, let's imagine I have a separate 7.1 monitoring configuration connected to the rear line outputs 1 through 8 on the Red interface, alongside the stereo monitors on the main stereo outputs. For our new source, I will select the 7.1 preset and assign the desired channels. Holding Option on your keyboard while making the first selection will assign all channels in an ascending order. Under the monitor output page, we'll make a second output option with the 7.1 preset and assign the channels to the Red interface outputs used. From the RedNet R1, we can now switch between our different input sources, and under the Outputs option, switch between our stereo and 7.1 monitoring options. For quicker switching between our main monitor outputs, we can configure them with the A/B button. Under the Monitor Outputs page, simply select the A and B option for the desired outputs. This will allow quick selection and switching between our two preferred monitoring groups without accessing the output menu. It's worth noting that the additional line outputs on the rear of the interface are not controlled by the main monitor dial by default. If looking to set up the volume control similar to the previous monitor output instructions, navigate to the monitoring section for the Red interface, check the appropriate outputs, and apply the setting change. The channel mapping page for the RedNet R1 will display a grid for each source group and monitor output destination. This can be useful for changing routings or trimming individual channel levels. Note that these will automatically apply routings when selecting presets on the previous pages. However, if creating a custom source group, manual assignment between the sources and outputs will be required. The RedNet R1 is equipped with an internal microphone and a dedicated XLR input for talkback purposes. On the rear of the device will be a switch for choosing the desired option, including the ability to apply 48 volts on the XLR input. The talkback gain dial will adjust the volume for the selected source. For our demonstration, we will use the internal microphone. The talkback microphone is routed over Dante, Audinate's audio over internet protocol. By default, this is routed to Dante input 32 on the Red interface, but we can change this from the settings if desired. By clicking the Apply option here, it will automatically make the routing based on our selection. Within Dante Controller's device view for our Red interface, we can see that the RedNet R1 has successfully been routed to input channel 32. Under the Talkback page in RedNet Control 2, we can begin routing the microphone. If seeing a red X in the Talkback setup portion, click the X to apply the default routing option previously shown in the settings. There are 4 Talkback channels available, with a single Talkback channel capable of being routed to 16 locations. Using Talkback channel 1, I'm going to assign this directly to headphone output 1 on the Red interface. While pressing and holding Talkback 1, we can see metering on the RedNet R1, on the headphone output 1 metering, and in RedNet Control 2. The buttons for Talkback will be set to momentary, but can be switched to latch, making it easier to engage multiple Talkback channels at the same time. For this, press Mode, Settings, then Talkback Latch. The left screen will now state Talkback is in latch mode. The RedNet R1 also features a dedicated headphone output, and like the Talkback microphone, it will utilize Dante for routing the signal. By default, this receives from Dante output 31 and 32 from the Red interface, and can be changed in the settings. We can also verify the routing in Dante Controller within the device view for the RedNet R1. If there is an issue with the routing or a sample rate mismatch between devices, an error would appear in the headphone setup section. Clicking the error should make adjustments based on the default settings, correcting the issue. Routing to the headphone output works similar to selecting source groups for the monitoring output. Click the headphone button on the RedNet R1 and choose between created source groups. The channel mapping page will show specifics on the routing and allow adjustments. As previously mentioned, preset options would automatically assign channels, but a custom source group would require manual assignments. The last page to look at in RedNet Control 2 for the RedNet R1 is Q Mixes, which replaces the Custom Mixes page for the Red interface. From here, we can create 8 different cue mixes of various input sources, levels, and routings. Once channels have been added, we will assign the output path for the mix. Let's select headphone output 2 on the interface for this example. Metering will now display our overall output level based on the levels of the individual tracks in the mix. We can also look to route the Talkback microphone to our cue mixes. Unlike our previous Talkback routing, we will not directly assign it to our desired output. Instead, we will click Cue Mixes and choose the mix we are currently using. The last item to cover is a few additional controls available from the RedNet R1. From the right side, we have the ability to mute and solo individual output channels. For solo, a few options exist under the output section. Solo in place will play only the selected output while muting others. Solo in front will solo the selected output and dim all others. Solo to front will send audio from the selected output to a different output based on the selection made in RedNet Control 2. On the left side, there are a couple settings that impact the input source groups. Some will allow us to combine multiple source groups, hearing active channels across them. Typically, the left screen shows a single meter for each of the 8 source groups, but not all channels within a group. By pressing Spill in the desired source group, individual component channels within a source group will be exposed, along with adding the ability to mute individual channels. Another useful feature is the ability to control the microphone preamps on the Red interface. For this, press Mode, followed by Mic Pre. We will now have access to all preamp settings we would have from the front panel of the Red interface.